Welcome back to the Fullerton College pre-press class, print 7577 combined, looking at the pre-press trainees manual section 2.4 illustration software part 2. Today we're going to look at some specific tools and abilities of Illustrator. And unlike the previous video where I showed you funny non-related videos that kind of remind me of things, this time we're actually going to take our sides to something a bit more useful and look at these tools in action. So first we have selection tools. Tools that I only learned had proper names once I got into teaching this stuff, because it was always just the black arrow and the white arrow, or the solid arrow and the hollow arrow. But apparently they're actually called the selection tool and the direct selection tool. The difference is the selection tool selects a whole object or a whole group if they've been grouped, and the direct selection tool selects a single anchor point or a single segment of line, and sometimes selects the inside of an embedded image as opposed to the frame that holds it. Over here in Illustrator, you can see on the top left corner here in our toolbar, let me close my brushes window, we don't need that right now. We have the black arrow and the white arrow, which look less like arrows nowadays and a little bit more like somewhere between Delta Airlines and the Federation of Planets. Anyways, we're going to use one of these arrows. The first one on the top is a direct selection, or the regular selection tool. Also, it can be picked up by pressing the letter V on your keyboard, which I do a lot. You can also oftentimes get to it by pressing Escape, which will let you drop whatever tool you're using and revert to it. Useful stuff. So on this rectangle that I pre-prepared for class, look how ready I am. I'll show you what it does. You take the black arrow and you click on it, and it selects the whole thing. You can see your bounding box includes all 4 corners and 4 middles of the lines and other little things around here. If you take this and you see, we'll zoom in a little, not that you can actually see that part easier. There's a little target inside each corner. If you click and drag on that, you can actually change the edges and round the corners. It does all 4 because we're using the selection tool, which selects the whole thing. Undo. You can also, with this selection tool, move and shape and size the image. You can stretch your object, undo, undo. If you hold down Shift while you stretch, it maintains the same proportions. If you click in the middle and you move it, you can move your objects anywhere you want on your artboard, no problem there. If you hold down Shift when you do that, it moves it in a straight line, either 45 or 90 degrees away from where you are. You can see my mouse is up here and it jumps and locks into those constrained movements. The way I remember this function is keep your shift straight. Have to enunciate a little better in video here than I would in class. Feel free to laugh amongst yourselves. Anyways, so that is the selection tool. The direct selection tool selects only one thing. Let me deselect and click on nothing. The direct selection tool says, I just want 1 point. The difference you can see now with 1 point selected is 1 point is dark blue, filled in. The other 3 points are hollow, showing me that I've only selected the 1 point. If I take this and move it, I'm moving only that single point. And that lets me adjust the shape by moving parts of the shape. So by doing this, I've made a Jawa sandcrawler. Anyways, let's undo this. You might also notice with that little corner doodly, there's only 1 target. So if I do this, I am now only doing 1 single corner of the object and not the whole thing. So if I want to do like a leaf shape, I could do that. Obviously, it's not quite there for being symmetrical because I'm just kind of doing this on the fly, but you could do it much more precise and set up guidelines for yourself to make sure it's the same. Undo, 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 undo. You can also select a line segment. I'll use my arrows to move this now. If I select the top segment, if I hold down Shift, I can stretch the box on one axis, but also I can move it over here and the thing will stay connected to it by moving that one piece. There are other ways to do the same thing, but this is one of them. So that's direct select. It selects 1 point. Back over to our lecture, colorizing your drawings. Illustrations can have fill colors and stroke colors. Fill colors means the inside of the shape has a color. Stroke color means the edge line that makes the boundary of the shape also has color. Back in Illustrator, the default setup when you make objects in Illustrator is to have a white fill and a black stroke. White box, black line. That's the simplest thing you can do. There are multiple places where you can change this. Over on your toolbar on the left, you have a fill and a stroke. You can also see you can click on them to do them. You can press X to switch between the two of them. The stroke always has kind of a hollow middle, so it's like a solid box and a box that's more of an outline to show that it's a stroke. You can change the colors there. Up on the top bar, when you have it selected in your adaptive toolbar, you have a fill and a stroke. And if you click on these little menus, it brings up whatever swatches you have available. The swatch book available will depend on the color mode and how you open your document. So that can be different depending on what's there. And you have a fill color and a stroke color. Over here, I also have the color menu, which is found under Window Color. And that's another place, also with the swatches, where you can have the fill color and the stroke color adjusted. So let's see what we can do here. First off, if I change the fill color, I can make it green because I like green. The stroke color could be yellow because it's visible against green. You won't see it when you're highlighted. I can actually make the stroke a little wider here too. There you go. That'd be better video anyways. When it's highlighted, you still have that blue, which is the color of the layer we're on, outline being shown. But if you deselect, you can see the fill color and the stroke color. You can also swap the two over here by hitting the little swap button on your toolbar. And then what was the fill becomes the stroke, and what was the stroke becomes the fill. The fill does not have to be solid. There's only one or two in the basic thing here, but you can also give it a gradient, which will start at one color and blend its way to another. There are 2 or 3 of these that show up by default. You can also use patterns. Again, default is not the most exciting thing in the world. You guys have seen this before, I'm sure, but for completion sense, I kind of feel that I need to show it again. Back with our friends at the PIA, they'd like you to know that there are multiple ways of adding color to your object, which is to mean there are different swatch books and methods of generating the colored fills that are going to be used. Let's take a look there again. Here we are, Illustrator. So you have swatches, which are based off how you open it. There are other libraries here. If you go into your swatches menu, down at the bottom, there's what looks like a stack of books on a bookshelf. There's the swatch libraries. Down here, there is a plethora of options. You have swatches that are built based off of different types of things, like art history ones. You have ancient art, Baroque, Impressionist, Middle Age art, pop art. I like Russian poster art as a palette choice. It's just a thing. I kind of liked constructivism when I was studying art history. But you know, you like your things. Pop art for you Liechtenstein fans out there. Celebration color books is useful. Color books is the dangerous one. You got to warn those designer friends of yours and clients about, because in here is where you start using the Pantone colors and the Toyo colors, and you're dragging out spot color. So if I open up Pantone Solid Plus Coated, I get this gorgeous book of swatches. Look at all those swatches. But you might notice when you look in the corners of them, there's a little black spot. So yeah, that little black spot in the corner lets you know that it's a spot color, and in fact is something much more serious than just a swatch of color being used. Because at that point, as we know, because we're in the biz and we're professionals here in pre-press, that black spot means bigger press, more workers, special ink, more money, more time, more overtime, all so they can get those pretty colors. Sometimes they're worth it. Sometimes they're not so worth it. It depends on what the customer wants and what they need and what they're willing to pay for. I've actually found in my experience that spot colors are almost more useful as a threat than they are as a solution. When you have a client who's desperate that color, you know, the red just doesn't pop enough. It's not red enough. I really want a redder red. Can't you do anything about it? I'm not happy and you guys need to give me a discount. Well, problem client, let me tell you, we have this thing called spot color where we will custom mix an ink color and print it on a separate plate and bring in the extra team of press hops to make sure that it happens correctly. It costs XXX dollars more to do it. Oh my gosh, I think I'm okay with your CMYK build. And that's how that generally goes. It's a very useful threat. But there are other swatches and other ways of making color on here as well. So You can also, under the color menu, when you've selected these things, if you get good with your CMYK mixes, which is kind of fun, and if you've taken my color class, you've played with this a lot, you can actually do it by the numbers and say, you know what would make a good yellow really? It would be, actually it's on the green right now, isn't it? Let's go to the yellow. I had like 100% yellow, but actually pure yellow is a little bit too lemony, and I wanted more of a golden yellow. So I'm gonna give it about 15% magenta to tip it slightly into the orange. And that will make a much better looking yellow when printed. This is much closer to your old US Army Air Corps trainer wing colors, if you know your old planes. They always painted their trainer planes bright yellow so you could find them when the new pilots crashed them. It's a gorgeous color though. It's a very rich yellow. Anyways, you can mix your own colors by CMYK values. If you know your CMYKs, down here, this ribbon, although it's doing CMYK values, is basically an RGB color picker, but it uses only CMYK values available. If you're in other color modes, you can get other things. Also, if you want to be disappointed, this is now a color lesson, haha, we can come down here and double click on this fill color over here, and this gives you the color picker. You have many choices of how to pick your color here. The basic window that I'm kind of swirling my mouse in over here is an RGB color thing. You choose where around the circle you want of color, and you can also choose how dark, how light, how saturated and unsaturated you choose. But let me go to one that we can't do. Let's go to the one that unfortunately is every single print client's favorite color. Perfect RGB bright blue. I'm sorry for those of you who are Angels fans, basically Dodger blue. But this perfect blue, it also has a name in Pantone. It's called Reflex blue. It is the most intense, pure color. And by pure, I mean closest to the exact wavelength of light that the blue cones in your eyeballs pick up. And it is delightful and people are drawn to it. Like, we really like this color as a species. This color is like addictive. And as close to this as we can get is what people want. Now, if you look at the little box of disappointment here, you can actually see the top versus the bottom. That little exclamation mark here says out of gamut warning. This says you are not able to make this color. If you click on the OK to it, and you say, yeah, well, let's click to correct. You then get the closest non-RGB color, which you can see. I'm using very wishy-washy language here. It falls flat. It does not have the intensity. It does not have the purity. It does not have that addictively ultimate blue quality that we are looking for. And again, this is one of the reasons you would use spot color. If someone has a logo that has a perfectly bright blue in it, and they're willing to pay the extra setup and printing costs to get it, they should use the Pantone or other spot color versions, because it's the only way you're going to achieve it. And I'll be honest, I like that bright blue. It's pretty. We all like it. It's just not feasible in CMYK. And by feasible, I actually mean physically possible at all. It is outside the capabilities of printing to produce this through normal mixed process color. And so when someone gives you a page full of little black spots, this is kind of the response that goes on inside my head.
It's not even his birthday. No, the paper. See you. Yeah. You dare to give me black spot. He told me to. And it's drawn on a page from the Bible. You tore a page from the Holy Scriptures to make a pirate's death sentence. Here. Whoa! The red hot gates of hell are creeping open. Satan is hating his poker's field. Blasphemous heathens. Fall down on your knees and beg for deliverance from damnation.
But you know, outwardly, I'm polite and try to explain to them what happens when you use too many spot colors in a graphic. That's it for now. We have one more short, hopefully, video coming up to finish out this chapter. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll talk soon.